At 2:17 a.m., nothing is happening. No emails, no messages, no deadlines expiring. And yet your brain is fully awake, replaying a conversation from 3 years ago, like it's breaking news. That's overthinking. Not loud panic, not visible chaos. Just a quiet, endless mental budget meeting that never adjourns. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people miss. Overthinking isn't a personality flaw. It's a system. And once that system turns on, it starts charging interest. Right now, more people are stuck in their heads than at any other point in modern history. Not because they're weak, but because the world quietly trained them to be this way. We live in an era where every decision feels permanent. Every mistake feels searchable. And every option feels like it can be optimized if you just think a little longer. So people do. They analyze. They hesitate. They wait. And by the time they're done thinking, the moment is gone. This matters now, because overthinking doesn't just affect feelings. It affects money, careers, relationships, timing. And timing, more than talent, decides outcomes. To understand overthinking, you have to stop treating it like anxiety and start treating it like economics. Because overthinkers aren't emotional, they're hyper-rational, in the wrong direction. Here's how the system actually works. The overthinking brain is obsessed with one thing: minimizing future regret. Not maximizing happiness, not maximizing growth, just avoiding the pain of being wrong. So every decision enters a mental spreadsheet. If I say this, what could go wrong? If I choose that, what am I giving up? If I act now, what information might I be missing? This feels responsible. It feels smart. But there's a hidden cost no one talks about. In economics, it's called opportunity cost. The value of what you lose by waiting. Overthinkers don't see opportunity cost clearly because it doesn't scream. It whispers. While they're thinking, life keeps moving. Markets move. People move on. Windows close. And here's the irony. The more intelligent someone is, the more vulnerable they are to this trap. Because intelligence increases simulation power. An overthinking brain can run 10 futures at once. Best case, worst case, embarrassing case, unlikely but possible case. Most people can't do that. Overthinkers can. And that ability becomes the very thing that freezes them. Psychologists call this analysis paralysis. But that name is too gentle. What's really happening is this. The brain mistakes thinking for progress. Each new thought feels like forward motion. Each new angle feels like preparation. So the brain keeps thinking to avoid the discomfort of action. Because action creates real consequences. Thoughts don't. There's a moment in every decision where information stops being useful and starts being insurance. Overthinkers cross that line constantly. They don't want clarity. They want certainty. And certainty doesn't exist. This is where the math gets uncomfortable. More thinking does not reduce risk linearly. It reduces it sharply at first, then barely at all. The first 20% of thinking gives you 80% of the useful insight. The remaining 80% of thinking gives you anxiety dressed as logic. But the brain doesn't feel that curve. It feels like, one more thought and I'll be ready. So it keeps going. This is why overthinkers often feel exhausted without doing much. Their mental CPU is running simulations all day. And simulations are expensive. They burn energy. They create emotional noise. They blur intuition. Eventually, the brain starts protecting itself. It delays decisions. It avoids commitment. It chooses later as a default. Not because later is better, but because later feels safer. Now let's talk about the hype. You've probably heard that overthinking means you're self-aware, that it means you care deeply, that it means you're thoughtful. That sounds flattering. And it's partially true, but it hides a dangerous reality. Overthinking is often a form of control disguised as responsibility. It's the belief that if you think hard enough, you can prevent pain. But pain isn't prevented that way. It's postponed, and usually multiplied. Because while you're thinking, the cost compounds. Missed chances don't announce themselves. They just quietly expire. Zoom out, and you see the bigger implication. Overthinking creates a population that is informed but inactive. People who know a lot, understand risks, see patterns, but move last. And in systems where timing matters, markets, relationships, creative work, moving last is often the most expensive position. The world quietly rewards those who act on imperfect information. Not recklessly, but decisively. Overthinkers struggle with this because they want guarantees in a probabilistic world. And probability doesn't negotiate. There's a final twist here that most people don't expect. Overthinking doesn't make decisions better. It shifts decisions from intuition to fear. The longer you delay, the louder fear becomes. At first, you're thinking strategically. Later, you're thinking defensively. By the time you act, you're no longer choosing. You're escaping discomfort. And that's when regret actually increases. So the system comes full circle. Overthinking tries to avoid regret, but it creates the exact conditions for it. The question isn't how to stop thinking. That's impossible. The real question is this: at what point does thinking stop being intelligence and start being avoidance? Because the most dangerous thought an overthinker has isn't, what if this goes wrong? It's this: I'll decide later. Later feels harmless. But later is where momentum goes to die. And if you're always waiting for the perfect moment to act, you might want to ask yourself whether the cost you're avoiding is smaller than the cost you're quietly paying every day you wait.